So I was talking about this on a webinar not too long ago, and I really want to take you through specifically what it often looks like with the dismissive avoidant and fearful avoidant in an argument on their track to resolution and why it can be complicated, and then what you can do about it. So if you've ever been a dismissive avoidant and fearful avoidant in a relationship dynamic, you'll find that there's a very common pattern that tends to take place when you're in a fight. And it basically looks like this. The dismissive avoidant ends up hurting the fearful avoidant more with their actions than their words. Dismissive avoidant attachment styles tend to be much more sensitive to words like criticism. They take those to heart very strongly, but they really are not very sensitive to actions. In other words, if somebody forgets to call them back, there's like an inaction, or if somebody pulls away and that's an action, dismissive avoidants don't even really notice that the vast majority of the time. On the other hand, fearful avoidants are very sensitive to actions. They notice the little tiniest incongruencies and changes in pattern in a relationship. And they are not very sensitive to words. If somebody says, you're a jerk, you're an asshole, says anything like that, they're like, oh, you were just mad. You were just, being expressive with your words because you were angry. I understand that. So it's really interesting how this ends up playing out. The dismissive avoidant ends up usually pulling away in some form from the fearful avoidant, or there's some kind of incongruency or inconsistency in the relationship. The fearful avoidant is like a living lie detector. They notice all changes to all things, and they really like notice this shift. And they can often interpret it as something painful. The person's about to betray them, or they don't care about them, or they're pulling away, they're going to abandon them. And so the fearful avoidant ends up feeling hurt or triggered by the DA pulling away. Then what happens next is really interesting. The dismissive or the fearful avoidant ends up often becoming critical. They become frustrated. They say to their DA partner, you know, what's wrong with you that you're always pulling away, whatever it might be. And they can be a little more harsh and critical with their words. Step that happens next is the dismissive avoidant feels very hurt by the words. They shut down in order to cope and push the fearful avoidant away further. Then sometimes the fearful avoidant escalates more and often is the one wanting to resolve the conflict quicker. So follow me for a second because we still have a few more points to go here. Then what happens next? Well, the fearful avoidant might be harsh with their words, then they feel guilty. Then they go to resolve the argument with their dismissive avoidant partner, maybe half an hour later. They approach the dismissive avoidant partner in an attempt to resolve the argument, and the DA is often slower to warm back up after a conflict has happened. They usually need even more space to process things. And then the fearful avoidant feels like, you are rejecting me. I reached out, I'm trying to solve this with you, and now you've rejected me. So you rejected me and it hurt me in the first place. Then I tried to talk to you about it. Now, of course, the fearful avoidant doesn't often realize how they're talking about it and that it's not productive. But the fearful avoidant feels like you hurt me first with your actions. Then I tried to talk to you about it. And then we got into an argument, and then I tried to fix the argument, and now you won't even try to resolve it with me. And I have seen this cycle play out in countless fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant dynamics. And the way the fearful avoidant often says it to me in couple sessions is along the lines of, well, my partner first hurt me, and then I'm the one to try to resolve the argument and fix things, and then they reject me. And it's because of this dynamic. It's a version of the anxious avoidant trap, with just the FA being on the more anxious leaning side and the DA being on the more avoidant leaning side. So, what do we do here? What are some key hacks to move through this dynamic? Well, if you want to do a deep dive, we have the 14-day free trial to all of PDS just for Mental Health Month. So it's a full 14-day trial to all of our courses, all of our events. You can come join me on webinars. We have daily events, community connection events, all kinds of stuff going on. And access to all 60 courses for free for the whole 14 days, more than enough time to get through at least 2 courses. You can join in, check it out for yourself, and you can take, if this is a big issue for you, the How to Repair Any Relationship course. And it specifically addresses something called primary trigger patterns, where we get caught in these loops for specific reasons, and it helps you really go deep into resolving them. So if this is a challenge for you in your relationship, and even if it's a friendship relationship, family relationship, getting to the roots of this is very powerful. Now, I will say some high level steps because I don't have time to go through it for like a whole half an hour here in the video, but high level steps are that when this is happening, you have to realize that as the fearful avoidant, if you're hurt, You will be so much better seen and heard and understood by your DA partner if you communicate vulnerably and in the positive. If you say, "Hey, I noticed you pull away, and I interpret that in my reality as you not caring about me or you not caring about the relationship. And I'm really needing you to show up. I'm really needing some time for us to be present together. I'm really needing us to go on a really nice date night together and hang out and catch back up. I'm really needing, like, if you speak about what you're interpreting and experiencing without blame, without saying you do this, this, and this in a negative way, if you can say, hey, when this happens, or when you take this action, this is how it affects me, this is what goes on, and here's what I would like to try instead, that is going to land so differently. Another really important thing is if you're the dismissive avoidant in the relationship dynamic and your FA partner is trying to resolve something with you, let them know, hey, I care about you. I'm going to come and resolve this. I still just need a little bit more time to process because I'm still hurting right now. And that way, the fearful avoidance doesn't feel like it's a rejection to work through the conflict, or they don't feel stonewalled or iced out when they're trying to kind of make things work again. And instead, they'll see that, hey, we process the conflict differently and we have sort of a different timeline through which we tend to rebound after a conflict. And fearful avoidance, because they've got that extreme avoidance side and then the extreme anxious side, that they actually tend to be able to rebound very quickly from one extreme to the other because they're often moving back and forth along those sort of extremes. Whereas a DA, they much more are pervasively in their avoidance side, and it takes them a while to really open up or warm up, even without a conflict. So with a conflict, they shut down even further, and they're trying to do that to kind of self protect. And then another thing to really take into consideration is if there's going to be a conflict or if there's a challenge in the relationship, communicating in a way where you're like, hey, we're on the same team. I don't want to argue with you right now, but I really want you to hear me and understand me and know what my experience is. If you approach it from that frame of reference or with that kind of tone of voice and approach, you're so much more likely to get heard. And when you communicate very clearly and specifically as to what you need as a fearful avoidant, that also goes a very long way. So, some important things to think about. I've seen this cycle so many times, and I just think it's really worthwhile, sort of, putting out there and making clear. And I will definitely do some deep dives into the different versions of the anxious avoidant trap in future videos. I have a couple on the channel so far, but if you really want to go much deeper, the courses at PDS are like 100 times better than these videos. I can just go so much deeper, put exercises, tools. They're very focused because I have so much more time to dive into everything. So check those out. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. And please like and subscribe to this channel if you're enjoying it. And I can't wait to see you in future videos.